Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, my name is Tommaso. I'm a PhD student at the Sheffield Management University. And my research is also part of Retrace project, which is a world class research platform which puts together universities and industry partners in order to analyze the challenges of the circular economy. So apart from doing research, we are also taking advantage of periods in industrial partners, and it has been really interesting so far. To start, I mean, research nowadays in the circular economy is very much changed from some years ago. From exploring a reality that was quite abstract today, researchers are more and more looking at empirical cases and using statistical methods or operational research methods to study these processes, to give managerial suggestions to industry. So it's quite an exciting field to be in. First of all, what do I intend with the circular economy and circular supply chain? In a circular economy, products are designed to be to have a longer life, to be shared, reused, remanufactured, and for their material to be recycled. In this way, as an economic system, we could avoid to produce the wrong products and to produce useless products and to use very precious natural resources by keeping in life what already exists. And so a circular supply chain is a system in which organizations collaborate not only to deliver products to customers, but also to realize these feedback loops. As Laura stresses the importance of questions, these are my questions. So with my research, I'm investigating which circular economy practices are companies choosing. Why are they choosing some practices and not others? If these practices have a supply chain perspective, and I stress the importance of this because incremental and not coordinated actions might not have the same impact as actions where all the actors are included, and that might have a more transformative system-wide effect. And also, I'm researching about what factors from a supply chain perspective can support companies in their supply chain. So what mechanisms, what configurations. So what I did is analyzing this sample, which is taken from the Global Fortune 500 list. They are the first 50 European companies. I have analyzed publicly available data and their sustainability report, and created a database with all the practices that all these companies have adopted. So why for multinational enterprises? Two main reasons. First of all, the impact they are responsible of, like a few enterprises responsible for for the majority of all the environmental impact in the last century, and the potential they have to involve their supply chains that are global, that are composed by thousands and thousands of medium and small companies, in order to, and the potential they have to spread this approach also with their customers and suppliers. So what practices did they adopt? So in this table, I summarized the main circular economy practices classified by type: reduction initiatives, reuse initiatives, recycle and recover initiatives. What we can see is that, for example, in the manufacturing industry, it's more and more common that companies are closing the loop for materials. They are incorporating recycled content in new products. They are designing products to be able to do these things. Sometimes they are adopting more innovative approaches and offering products as a service where they maintain the ownership over the product. In the service industry, on the other hand, companies are more and more disinvesting from carbon intensive solutions and choosing to invest on renewable energy solutions. On the agri-food industry, again, companies are utilizing recycled material, prioritize regenerative and less impactful resources. Which another level of detail I added in this analysis is to distinguish low level of implementation solutions from high level of implementation solutions. So distinguish when practices were just prototypes or when practices were adopted across product lines and across geographical areas. I've also checked company by company the quality of their approach. So I evaluated the presence of different types of practices and their level of implementation, and also distinguished between those practices that were focusing just at the internal realities of companies from those practices that required an involvement of some other actors in the supply chain. What we can see is that there are definitely some companies that are performing much better than others. There are some front runners innovating also the way they are doing business, innovating their business models. And in contrast, there are other companies that are simply following and they are a bit more resistant to change. We can also see that the best performing companies come from all the sectors I have analyzed, so manufacturing, services, agri-food, and energy, while the worst performing ones come mainly from the service industry, which where companies are adopting practices at very initial level of implementation. Another important aspect I'm investigating is to see the level of supply chain integration on the adoption of practice. I explain myself better. With supply chain integration, I intend the extent to which a company develops coordinative and collaborative initiatives with its suppliers and with its customers. So the level at which they share information, the level at which they develop products together with key customers and suppliers, and so on. So I identified some clusters of companies, and I could see also that higher integration, so the more integrated you are with your supply chain, the more probable is to adopt practices and to adopt them at a higher level of implementation. You can also see that the number of practices with more potential to change production systems, so those practices that have an involvement of other partners in the supply chain, have a higher probability to be adopted in a higher integrated supply chain. Another aspect I'm looking at is the reasons behind the adoption. So what I'm interested mainly is the reasons in the external environment that are driving most of the companies to change how they operate. Companies sometimes take the decision of adopt practices because they follow regulation, because they are afraid of penalties. A clear example is the end-of-life directive of the European Union that has pushed up the recyclability of the products that are put in the market. Other times, they decide to take these actions because they feel they are doing the right thing. So it is more related to the values and to the values they believe in. And in this case, some examples could be related to industry standards that are set up by organizations in certain industry in order to boost, in order to improve the efficiency materials are used, like Aluminium Stewardship Initiative, the Global Battery Alliance are good examples of this. At last, even in absence of values or in absence of directives, companies adopt practice simply copying each other best practices. That is what happens when they face uncertainties and they want to find mechanisms to reduce it. So to conclude, some few take-home messages. The attention, if we look at the most important multinational enterprises in Europe, the attention devoted to circular economy practices is generally increasing. There are some type of practices that are more popular than others, for example, recycling practices. If we look at practices related to product life extension and reuse, that depends a lot on the design of new products. There is a bit of resistance, and also because of the tension that might exist for a company in relation to the uncertainties for what concerns profitability, because producing products with longer life might cannibalize your future sales, might prevent you from keeping the market share you have, and so on. And the last point is that the higher the level of integration with your supply chain partners, the more probable is for you that you are adopting circular economy practices. So thank you very much. I'm really
Thank you, Tommaso. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, but I will keep them for a later time when we have questions. If you stop sharing your screen, we can give the stage to our friend Andreas, who will look and will offer different perspectives. From the research, we will move to the project management. Andreas, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, my view is, let's say, I'm very grateful to Tommaso to explain it all, because that's what I'm doing very often. I'm explaining what circular economy means and how that is working, what the different strategies are. Today, I'm focusing on project management because that's my background. I'm a project manager, so I've been working in project management for more than 20 years now. I'm a trainer, I'm a consultant, I'm helping people to do better project management. But then I came across the sustainable and circular economy projects, which are a bit different than other projects. And that's why I'm looking today in this short intro a bit, what are the specifics of circular economy projects, because I've been working on a project where we were doing a carbon neutral conference, integrating also ideas of circular economy. And then I've been working in a research project 3 years where it was about recyclable sporting goods. So how to develop that? Not yet in the market, but some ideas are already visible. So that's really good. But I also, when I worked at that project, I recognized what are elements stopping large companies from adopting more circular processes, just like Tommaso just mentioned. One is definitely the point of fear to lose business, or basically having systems in place which don't support circular solutions. And to change the systems is of course a major thing. So basically when it comes to circular economy, we need to think long term. We need to think in larger elements and in integration. And as we see here, and it's a complex thing if you want to look at the nature on the one hand, but I'm pretty sure when they built these pyramids, the social aspect of the workers wasn't really considered. There were some other elements. But of course we want to have, if we build such things, we want to integrate that with nature, but we want to do it in a positive way. And for me, if I'm implementing circular economy, it means I'm implementing it in a regenerative way, in a sustainable way, so that people are integrated. And that's for me also the important thing when you're setting up a project. So what I'm going through quickly is basically all the stages of a project and what to consider when looking at that. But before you go to a project, of course, you need to understand if you're working on a sustainability project, it's not kind of the typical project where you get a business case, and the business case means, okay, how much more money can we make? We are selling some new products. We are implementing some efficiencies where you can see really the cost reduction. The circular projects are looking in a further future, and it's important. If you want to integrate the people for your circular projects, you need to have a vision. So the vision really to say, like in our case, to have fully recyclable sporting products in the future, and that's really a long future they are looking at. That is something which is, of course, motivating people to join the project. You need to have a motivating vision for these projects. It's not about the money. It's not about the more business we do. It's about changing the world. It's about, and we all know that now we need to work in a different way. We need to live in a different way. And to be contributing to that is a very strong motivation to bring people on board. And that's important because, let's say, if you look at the standard business case templates, they don't work for circular economy projects because they are focusing on other topics. So it's really the impact creation in the socio-economic way, in the ecological way, needs to be in the environmental way, needs to be considered. And that's important when you prepare it, really to have a clear business case and to have the commitment from senior management that you want to go this way. And you may have a look at some other projects which are running in the moment, because very often it's kind of, we don't have the time and it's too complicated to start it now. So look at some projects and check maybe how circular are they, and are they really supporting our idea of the company to be carbon neutral, to be circular, to be really reusing and providing different service to the customer. So the point is why a lot of companies don't do it, because some think they need to close the loop entirely. That's what I saw when I was in the project. So it's so complicated. I mean, yes, we do the design and we can change the design to be more circular, to be more modular. But the materials, they are from some areas, different areas, but we had actually a material provider in our team. And they said, yes, we have all the machines to build the new materials. So why should we use recycled materials actually? So that's not our competence. So for them, it was also a change of the perspective. For the production, of course, that's Far East in that sense. So you need to understand, how can I convince the people who are producing? How can I pay them fairly so that they can produce to other standards? And do we need to produce ourselves? Do we need to produce locally? Because that's the point. Who's ensuring the distribution? That's most of the time than the company itself. But then you go to use and also to share. And sharing, like Tommaso mentioned, is not something, if you are not acting, then basically sharing happens without you as a company. So maybe the question is, how can you offer their different elements? And even worse, it's the maintenance, because then basically repair and refurbish the other strategies are very often not considered by the company, but you can have partners. And that's the point of circular economy. You need to have the partners. You need to look at the circular value chain. And who are the people who are collecting? Who are the ones who are using it after? So it's really, which brings me to the next point. It's really about understanding your stakeholders. Because for circular projects, whoops, I was too fast. Spoiler. So for circular economy, you really have a very broad group of stakeholders all through the entire company. You need to integrate people, and if you forget them, it may haunt you afterwards. So then the other part is, when you're doing sustainable or circular projects, you need to define at the beginning, not just the scope, what you want to integrate, but also what do I want to learn during the project? Because we know we will start things and they won't work out, and we will find out we need to do it in a different way because our products are not recyclable, they are not repairable. So how can we do it in a different way? Then we do it and people don't understand it, or our value chain doesn't work. So it's really important also to define that and be open also for changes and for errors or things which won't work. And that's a mindset thing, of course, which is important. It's okay that things don't work, like in every project, and it's okay that we change. And that's why we use agile methods for planning and delivery. So basically defining sprints, trying things out, bringing it to the market, having some groups testing it out, getting feedback. That's what we also, or the company I was working in, for example, did with some players. So really to get things, to get them back. We tried out some shoes and recycled them. So that's see what comes out. And then you find out, oh, we can't use that at all. So we need to change our way of working. So it's important to really go step by step and integrate the people. And allowed to learn. I mean, that's for every project, and that's what I've seen very often in projects. A lot of the time people think I do a project plan and I need to follow the project plan. If I don't follow a project plan, I'm a bad project manager. And that is completely wrong. If you follow the project plan exactly, it means you haven't learned anything during the project. You knew it all before. Really? That's not a project. If you know it all before, basically you're not really in a project mode. In a project you learn, and you need to be able to adapt, and you need to be able to integrate that in the way of working. That's far more important than following a plan. So planning is important to understand it, but don't the plan is not a sacred thing. The most important thing is to be open for change and understand what it means. And then, of course, on your quest, on the way to circularity, it's always the senior management always needs to go ahead, and they need to be the role models. Because if you want to reduce waste, if you want to do other behaviors, and your senior management doesn't care about it at all, that won't work. So really, you need to have them playing a major role and always also updating them. So it's a lot of communication you need to do, and you need to plan the communication. That's, of course, it's project management, it's people management, and it's a lot to deal with the different players, to understand the stakeholders, and to talk to them. So that's during the project. And of course, when you're handing it over, because the project that sometimes stops, it's really, if you have defined it properly, then you can stop your project, and you really need to check how are we realizing the benefits, because you need to do PR for circular economy. We have implemented something and it worked out. Just spoke to a cradle-to-cradle company in construction, where they really are now using more and more reusing stuff. And it's hard to convince the internal people also that it's a good thing to reuse, that it's a good thing to encourage that it lasts longer, that you have a product life extension. But it's worthwhile because the customers value it, that you really deliver value and not just sell, sell, sell. So that is a mindset shift which needs to happen. And of course, when you're doing a project, you will find out where are new projects which need to be run. And you really need to identify them and then put them on the roadmap. And yeah, the important thing is to have really a win-win mindset when you are going ahead. So basically you can nurture yourself, you can integrate the partners. So that's an overall way. So basically if in the company, kind of the backbone is not set on collaboration, on really growing together, it's very hard to put some circular practices, because then you're always kind of in a defensive mode. And I've seen that when you kind of try to protect your own things, and we see it in some large companies, they try to protect and basically want to close the loop alone, and that closes the door for other players, and that's not a good thing. And it also restricts, because let's say if it's about products you want to get back and want to reuse, you need to be open so that others can reuse it also. But it's good if you can you can ensure the quality. So that is these are some key points for me when it comes to sustainable project management in a very quick glimpse. And yeah, that's what we do also, just a short PR. In Circonnect, we work with small businesses, with medium-sized businesses, also with large businesses, really to incorporate circularity in the company, to really build a structure. Like in project management, you need to have a structure that projects run properly, and the same is for circularity, to bring it into the company, but also make it actionable. And be aware, not everything will work out at the beginning. And the best, of course, to learn project management is to do projects. You can do a course, that's great, but you learn the most by experiencing, by reflecting, and by continuously making some new experiences and learning new things.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Yeah, very good, very good ending point. The point is experiencing, and experiencing. Very true. So thank you very much. Now I would like to start with one question that is derives from something that I received these photos from a friend of mine who is in South Africa. And it appears, and I researched that emerging countries seems to be much more advanced than developed countries in mobilizing the community for picking waste. So are emerging countries, on your point of view, more circular? It looks like I've got here something interesting to read you. 20 million of informal recycling workers, with examples like in India, a cooperative who is hired by the city to provide doorstep waste collections. Or in Bogota, in Colombia, waste pickers have secured rights to access waste materials by the Constitutional Court, which mandated that waste pickers should be paid for their services. And in Brazil, again, another one, many municipalities hire waste pickers co-ops to provide a door-to-door collection of recyclables. So my point is, developed countries looks like a mobilizing population. Companies and the municipalities work together. Do you think is happening the same in developed countries? Which are the limits that we have for this to happen?
Yeah, I can make.
Who want to say their word? I know that is a little bit outside your domain. I understand that you are researching multinational groups basically in developed countries, but I mean, it looks like we are very far from 20 million workers involved.
Yeah, I can make a couple of points.
Please.
Well, in this case, we are talking about recycling and recycling of materials from end-of-life products. We also know that a great part of those products that end up in landfills in countries from the global south are coming from the global north. So we know about the problems we have, this phenomena that our waste is exported to poorer countries. So, of course, in these economies, I would say there is some value that is recognized in end-of-life products and end-of-life materials. Most of the times, waste pickers are able to extract very precious materials that then they resell. So if this is not happening in our countries, it's probably because we are getting rid of the problem at the root by sending our waste away. But for sure, there is a part of the circular economy which have to do with recovering end-of-life products, and it has to do with extracting value from them. And probably, yes, we might have something to learn from these practices. I don't know what Andreas thinking about it.
I think we can learn a lot, because I think the most impressive project when it came to basically to circular agriculture I've seen in Benin, which is a country in Africa, maybe close to Ghana and Togo, so Nigeria, where basically they were using everything. So it was so impressive for me. And of course, when you're traveling also in other countries, you see, of course, sometimes there's the need for them to reuse, to repair. So they are a lot more skilled to use the stuff which they have. There is a huge waste problem on the other hand. So basically that's awareness topic. But of course, when you're traveling to Latin America, or when you have traveled, you were seeing the people carrying the waste from everywhere, and they are being paid. And that's, of course, for some people, their income. It's great to see that it's now more moving to the normal business, so that it's not something they pay. They don't have any social security, or they didn't have, or they were exploited by some people who made a lot of money. So basically that now, and I've seen a great project also in Brazil where they are tracking with blockchain, basically really tracing how they bring the stuff from.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's I can send you. I can.
Please.
I think it's a blockchain. I'm not fully sure, but it's really they are tracing. So basically they are.
That's interesting.
That you can see the bottle from the bar to going to the recycling.
Well, that's an interesting use case. Andreas, you have been talking about bringing all the stakeholders together. And this is a key problem, I think, in any project, but certainly is very crucial in a topic that requires quite a lot of ethical approach, which is not necessarily the core of everyone. So can you expand a little bit, thinking of your real case, because people understand better if you position them into a real case. Can you make some examples of how you could take people in the context of a circular economy project? What does it mean? Talk a lot with people. It's okay. I mean, it's not only talking, I guess.
No, talking is nice, but it doesn't really help. So we did some workshops, and we basically we did some open workshops for circular economy, and people from the different departments in the organization joined because they liked it. So the topic, it was really kind of, they like to work out, okay, how could we do that? How could we deal in a different way with our current shoes? How could we rethink the design? How could we integrate other shoes which are currently not looked at? How can we integrate the different branches or the different departments? And you find people in every department who are somewhat involved in some local, being it cleaning the ocean or whatever activity. And these people are totally happy to join and to bring in their ideas and to bring in new perspectives. So it was really, that was for me an eye-opener, that people really loved to contribute and to
tell me,
rethink.
this is very interesting. Tell me how it started. So you are hired by a company for a project that has this strong ethical idea. Do you make a plan that where you say we needed to map how the organization is and bring in each sector, and you plan a kind of series of workshops, how it works? Because it looks like, especially because you have been talking about large organizations, so it looks like it must be very time consuming.
It is, well, it's as a typical project manager, keeping your eyes and ears open to everything and finding place also where to dock on. For example, in that company, they had a sustainability department, and I asked them, okay, do you do anything about circularity? They didn't. So we said, okay, let's sit together and define on how circularity could be done. And then they were also following up because they liked it, and they got some support from our side as we had some funding. So we joined forces with the different departments which were there. And that was basically, as we were working with people already in the organization, they knew other people in the organization. So it wasn't kind of defining from the beginning everything, how we need to integrate whom, but it was a bit also, okay, what are the challenges we're facing, and what opportunities do we have? Do we work with any universities already?
You mean that you designed the process of the circularity together with, in collaboration with the stakeholders, the internal stakeholders of the company?
Yes,
right.
And we had some help also from some external, from a university in Denmark, which had experience also for other companies. So we looked with them, did a whole longer workshop where we defined a roadmap. But that was after we had already gathered some know-how. So basically, first,
who decided the goals? Who decided the aim? I mean, apart of the ethical thing, but was there some kind of result to be achieved?
I think that was what was also maybe the main driver, because we wanted to find solutions which are recyclable, which are good for the environment, which bring us out of this kind of wasteful way of working in the moment. So everything is sorted to the point of sale, and we need to sell because that brings us a lot of money. So really to change that perspective, and that's where people like to be engaged. So it's more really what I said. It's more the overall vision, which was part of the project we had.
But
And of course,
I like
it was
the idea of the vision, but I want to understand how you measure it. Tommaso,
I mean,
do you have an idea about
it
measurements?
was defined, of course.
Okay.
So of course we had a plan also. We put the project in stages, and then we also said what are the technological advances we want to do. However, it's always kind of then the customer project manager also tried to have a full-blown Gantt chart with every step, and I said it doesn't make sense because we are learning. We need to define more the milestones and then get together, find out and decide also what are the next steps, and find also what are things we need to basically learn, as it was an innovation project. And I think that was a key success factor also.
Tommaso, do you have can you give us an idea of how these companies that you interviewed or you are researching measure circularity, if they do?
Yeah, sure. Companies may measure the benefit or the impact of the adoption of their practices by looking at benefits that range from economic benefits, environmental benefits, social benefits. For example, some possible indicators that could be
I've been looking at the indicators. There are thousands of indicators. Tell me, how should a company understand which is the right indicators? There is no real standard.
Well, I think that's very much related to your vision. I mean, when you have an idea of where you want to go, then you will do some choices, which are, I will choose this indicator and exclude this other indicator. And you will measure your idea of circularity. There were some works also in the academic literature, and they were saying that most of the companies are building their own circular economy indicators. There are some think tanks which are trying to build these standardized circular economy indicators, so which might be useful at some level if you want to compare different companies and so on. However,
can I ask you a question? Sorry, I interrupt you. You said in your presentation that companies are acting as a consequence of fair and eventually ethics. Can you give a measure how many? So on the 100 that you have probably interviewed, how many are acting by fair and how many are acting by ethics? Because this will give us the measurement of how subjective it will be, this, let's say, open standard that seems to be developed across those who are integrating in circularity.
Yeah, well, I don't have an answer like 25. I mean,
that's a big pity, because you don't help me to understand if we are safe or not.
Well, I think I think the reason why a company is acting is probably related to the type of practice you adopt. I would say if you are adopting a more radical practice, you're probably driven by a vision, you're probably driven by something you believe that is important to do. While if you are just adapting to what others are doing, then you are probably adopting incremental practices that don't really change the way you're operating, and that might help you to be more efficient while keeping alive the way you are doing business.
I saw that you mentioned, of course, very large organizations, and while Andreas was also talking in his presentation at the end of their work with small, medium enterprise, if I understand it well, Andreas. So my question is, it seems that the 55% of carbon reduction will be due to climate things, but 45% will come from production. So production, the large organizations you mentioned, they correspond approximately to the 2-3% of the global number of organizations. All the rest are small and medium enterprises. So if the 45% derives from enterprises, and the large majority of enterprises are small and medium, at the moment, only the large ones are taking action, some circularity action. We will never meet the 45%, right?
The small ones are actually taking actions. The large ones are very often learning or picking up these ideas, I think.
Okay,
because for
let us
large
dream.
ones, no, I mean, on the other hand, I know a lot of large companies and they are doing a lot of stuff they don't show, they don't talk about, because they are afraid of they say we are doing that. Then there are a lot of people saying, yeah, but you don't, but 90% of your business is still bad. So
okay.
10% don't help. So basically they are more careful to bring new practices on board. And there are a lot of small companies who are either when they start, and there are, so when I look at the startups in the moment, a lot of startups are really starting up in the circular or in the sustainability way, because these are young people. For young people, sustainability is a lot more important. So they are a lot more aware and they are trying things out. They are maybe more open than someone who's running a company and need to ensure all the workers get paid daily. So you cannot make some huge, oh yeah, let's change the whole company from today to tomorrow. So transformation takes a while. So that's of course an important thing. But there are a lot of small companies, and of course we need also to get to the 45% or to get to less production. What we need is basically we need companies who don't do production. We don't need more companies to do production, because I think we have enough. We need companies to ensure that things keep in the loop, that do the logistics, that reduce the transaction costs if I want to reuse, if I want to refurbish, remanufacture things, which help the companies, the large companies, basically to get to new models, to really, that it makes sense to have longer lifetimes. Because if, let's say for a car, of course, if it will be a totally different need for the car producers if their car is not used just 2% of the time, but 80% of the time. How long will the cars hold? How long will we need new parts in the cars. We need new wheels which are lasting longer, because it makes sense, because they are used more. Currently there's no need for them to do that. And I think that's what where really also the smaller companies and the service companies can jump in and really bring these new ideas to life, where then we can see it in, let's say, in the mobile phone. There's Shift Phones, which is a German company. They have a fully modular phone, or we have Fairphone, a Dutch company who know the supply chain. And now finally some of the large ones, or Apple is not one of, in that sense, let's say, surely not one of the best examples, because they were closing, or they were providing other partners from repairing. But now, after quite some while, they are opening up for repairs. And that, of course, is because of other partners, because others showing, yes, there is a group of people who like it, and there's a business behind it. And then, of course, the larger companies will also have more confidence to slowly move their tanker to more sustainable practices.
Definitely. If I can add something on this, I totally agree. I mean, And I don't think it's a case that Apple has communicated this change in its strategy also right after a lot of pressures coming from customers and a lot of some directives like the French reparability index that are influencing also how much customers are aware of some characteristics of the product and how much they base their choices on that.
Well, certainly the new generations, Generation Z in particular, are very very open or very interested in driving their purchases through an evaluation about the circularity and sustainability of the companies they are purchasing by. So certainly new generations go in that direction and will somehow oblige organizations to go there. But I'm under the impression that the enforceability of circularity give a significant help. Are you aware about where we are in terms of policies from the different side of the world? Is there a place in the world that does more than others? And which are the areas that in terms of policies are already covered, and which are the industries that are eventually are more concerned by circularity? So there are many questions. The first is where the policies are. The second is which are the industries more interested in, more concerned, and at what stage we are in terms of policy development.
We're at a good stage of policy development, I'd say, especially because the EU also with the Green Deal and with the Circular Economy Action Plan and the objectives basically that within the next few years, all products going to the European market should be sustainable by default. And basically when talking about planned obsolescence, that in future, the providers will need to show that they haven't got planned obsolescence rather than the other way around, like it is in the moment that you need to tell them there is planned obsolescence. So that's also a small company, for example, in Austria developing these rules, and we have it in Austria, parts of it. So that is one thing. There are some countries, so a lot of Latin American countries already have their roadmaps. Germany and Austria are getting there, of course, like the Netherlands or the Nordic countries, they are, I'd say, some steps ahead in various elements, especially in Netherlands is when you wanna find some good examples on how to do circular business, you will find them in the Netherlands. So very often you end up.
Well, the north of Europe is always very, very, very green, in generally speaking.
Yeah, even though in let's say Norway is, I think they have a circularity index of 2.4, which is far below everything else. So yeah, they also in Sweden and Finland, they like to burn stuff. So it's not all nice, and of course it also means reducing. And I think Denmark is one of the countries who's producing or who's consuming most. So you really need to look at the full picture, because circularity starts with reducing and not producing. Basically, that's where it all starts. It's not kind of making the production more circular and using it more and more, but it's kind of starting really, what do you really need? And I'll leave the different areas to Tommaso.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, also the circular economy package has been criticized because by some environmental activists, because not enough ambitious. And I think we have to take into account that one of the risks could be that we are stimulating the wrong practices. As Andreas was saying, it's very important to have an approach that takes into consideration also the reduce of the circular economy, because then the risk could be that we build societies economies where we recycle a lot, but we produce the wrong products in the wrong quantities and with the shorter lives. So is that circular or not? So it's very important also to monitor how these policies are having an effect on the economies and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So basically, there are pros and cons that needs to be carefully considered before any consideration. We have just a few minutes. I would like to give a short suggestion to any company or any individual who is willing to consider circularity for themselves or for their career. Your impression, what should look like the team that cares about circularity into a company, let's just say a small, medium company, obviously not considering the very large ones that certainly would have a different approach. So a small, medium company, what should look like the team that cares about that? What should look like the way to monitor circularity? And on the other side of individuals, what should be the skills, the main skills of a circular economy expert who is willing to invest himself or herself in this space? What is your suggestion?
I can start with the team, because for the team, I think it's really important to have a cross-departmental team. So to really have a team from the entire organization. When I did a workshop with one company, they said, oh, that is something we need to do with our production people, because they would have so many ideas for that. So really integrate the people who are seeing basically, oh, that's really wasteful, or that doesn't make sense, or we could do that in a different way. And bring their core team together and let them try things out, let them work. So really in an agile way of working to proceed. And of course, with the monitoring and communication is a key, really to communicate also internally what we want to do, what we want to achieve, because that everyone can contribute. And if people can contribute, they are engaged, and it basically it brings a company to life. And we have a lot of companies where there's not so much life, but people just go there to work. So I think we need that anyway.
Co-creation, I do fully agree with that. Thank you, Andreas. Tommaso, do you have a thought to add?
Yes, I totally agree that creativity and collaboration is a very important point. I would like to add also the importance of considering some scientific aspects, and so of measuring with available tools like life cycle assessment, social life cycle assessment, the impacts of different circular economy scenario from an environmental point of view, because some circular economy projects might be better than others, and some might even be worse than linear solutions. So we really need to be careful about that as well.